Hey team, today is 15th December 2023. Hopefully the last meeting of the year. So we are in Cluster API provider for IBMCloud meeting. Let's get started. As usual, some of these items I have listed here. So Patrick was mentioning about discussing the other, like his proposal configuration as well. So let's see if we can discuss that as well, right? Okay, maybe we'll arrange it later. Okay. So last time we had meeting on 17th November. Let's see what all things we had delivered so far. Just give me a minute. All right, sorry, I'm back. Okay, 17th November. Yeah, here we go. In post 17th, we have some documentation changes and then added support for cluster class or VPC. So this has been merged by Kishan. Then we added documentation for E2E. Then a Golang bump, API, cluster API bump, and then added some quick check into the E2E to make sure the controllers are running fine and all that. So this is for, correct me if I'm wrong, Amulya. So this is for to make sure that the test case is being run. I think, test case wasn't running before.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is to ensure that, the controllers are running fine, right?
Right. Yeah, right.
Cool. Then we did some small fix in the finalizers. This will just ensure that the finalizers are being added and then, forces controller to sort of reconcile again once they add the, finalizer, just to make sure if something goes wrong in between, before adding finalizer, there'll be a problem in the controller. So that is been taken care of this code. Then bunch of updates, core module updates, and then some documentation changes as well. I mean, like, we did spend a lot of time on the documentation this release, but still I feel like something we definitely need to rewrite, if I'm not wrong. So like, I was just talking to Kishan as well. So I mean, like, I mean, we added plenty of documentation, but I'm not sure if the documentation is really sort of way we can consume it easily. The ease of consumption is the big question mark still. Maybe next year, I think we should see if we can maybe, rewrite the entire doc. All right. So to make the documentation more easy to consume.
Yeah, that's true, Manju. When I was discussing this with like Kishan or Niharika, who were actually, contributing first time. So definitely it wasn't smooth for them. So maybe next year I'll sit with maybe I can sit with all the new folks and try to identify the gaps and, like just revamp all of it.
Yeah. I think I highly recommend these folks to sort of report issues whenever they find issues, like when they find difficulties, so that at least we have some feedback to fix it, right? Otherwise, I don't want to do again same mistake, right? So I think maybe Amulya can maybe create a task and then get that feedback from the new folks.
Yeah, sure, Manju. I'll do that. Yeah.
Okay. I'll just get down. Task for getting invitation. All right. And then we published the new images, and then we updated to RC1. And this is small doc change for including the gateway information as well, transit gateway information as well, which becomes handy later. Yeah, finally we updated to 160, right? So that's like last week sometime. Like Prajot, are they planning for .1 by any chance anytime soon, or are we
No,
good?
Manju, we are good for now. Yeah.
Okay,
.1 is
okay,
not part of this cycle. It will come as a part of the 1.7 release cycle, right? So it will take some time.
okay. So that means I think we can cut the release. I think we have given enough time, and then let me quickly check if we can see
Yeah.
how the CI is doing.
Yeah, so Manju, there is one PR which I want to get in, which will bump the Golang version, right? Because the security workflow is failing for
Okay,
some package vulnerabilities. So that PR I'll get in today. So
sure.
the delay was because since I have uninstalled Docker on my machine, it is causing different issues with Podman. But I'll get that fixed and raise that PR today itself. So then we can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, cool. But yeah, even CI is pretty much clean except this one. Not sure why it is really failing. Um, okay, no control plane machines came in. The one test case, no, just before. Oh, nothing passed. This could be a environment issue somewhere. Or at least like we see that at least after the merge, I think there are a couple of green runs. I think we can cut the release with this confidence after merging the Golang pump. So guys, do you see any other issues for the release cut? Okay, I'll take that as no. A bunch of updates, maybe I'll take merge this as well. Next releases, yes, I mean, yeah, so the plan is to cut 0.7. Maybe I'll just try doing it today itself and open up for 0.8 for a lot of exciting stuff, right? So the spec changes and then whatnot for infrastructure creation. So maybe we'll handle those things in 0.8. Yeah, so today I'll just merge like whatever possible PRs I'll merge and then cut a release for 0.7. And I see, yeah, I mean, I just, by the way, I just moved some of these issues where they're in 0.7 to next. And then like maybe I think next, yeah, then there are 17 items. We will maybe focus that in the beginning of next year. How do we plan for 0. Release? Right now, the focus is on like cut the 0.7 release and then get going. Any concern on any issues? All right. And I may end up creating releases for the other minor branches as well, 0.5 and then 0.4, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, so 0.5 and then 0.4, I just got a release. It's been a while. I'll do that as well today. So, Rajat, do you want to update those branches also? The Golang?
Yes, Manju. Yeah, I'm checking. So that security workflow is filling for all those branches, right? So I'll update everything, all the three.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so once you update, I'll just get the release. Okay,
Sure.
cool. And then backlogs, maybe we'll just keep it for next year. I think we'll discuss about that in detail. So maybe I think right now, like the more important thing is like we'll just discuss um, the infra creation before we sort of break for the vacation. Right. Remaining things can wait. All right. I think CI we have looked at it. It's pretty much clean. What else before we discuss about the infra creation? Yeah, we're good. All right. With that, I'll hand it over to Karthik or someone else who want to take it and then lead the discussion for the infra creation.
Yeah, sure, I can start.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So,
Do you want to share anything or?
yeah, I'm just thinking.
Yeah, maybe you can start sharing. So I'll just stop sharing screen.
Yeah. One second. Yeah, give me a second.
Sure.
Yeah. So we have a couple of PR. One is just for the API changes, and another is one for the small implementation part of it. And before getting, maybe I'll just share this image. What is this?
By the way, is this updated changes are the one what you are working for the OpenShift? So does it contain all the changes or?
Yeah, I need to update couple of fields. Maybe I will do it by today or next week.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So I would say like maybe, yeah, I mean, before going to vacation, so
Yeah,
make sure you push everything, like not part of this like design, but the other one, right? So um, in the real PR, which contains the spec changes and then controllers. So let's push all the changes so that we will have enough time if someone wants to take a look.
Yeah, so that
Okay.
is available at my branch in my local
But,
fork.
but can you just submit those changes into like the PR you created for that infra creation?
To this repo.
Yeah. You just update the PR. That's it.
Okay, okay, I can do
But
that.
let's. What I'm thinking is like maybe let's maintain only one sort of change set, right? Because you already have some change set here in this repository with that
Yeah,
PR. Why don't we just update that? I mean, let's not really worry about like CI failure or anything like that, but let's make sure we push everything and then people will have sort of enough idea like what's happening, right? So instead of maintaining two copies, let's maintain only one copy.
yeah, sure, Manju, I will do that.
Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, so before for that, so this is a diagram for reference what we are trying to do, right? With the Power VS cluster controller, we are want to create the Power VS workspace, the DHCP network, the VPC, the load balancer, subnet, and the transit gateway. And along with that, if the user wants to go with the ignition as a way of passing the user data instead of the normal user data way, so then we will go and create the cause instance as well. Currently that is not updated in this diagram. Maybe I will add another diagram for that as well. So this is the overall picture. And yeah, maybe just to quickly show the reference. So we ended up adding more fields to the Power VS cluster spec to accommodate these changes. For example, the zone. Previously, it was just a service instance ID. Now we made a service instance reference, which has name ID, regular expression as a reference. And apart from that, we have the VPC, VP subnet, transit gateway, control plane, load balance, and the cost bucket. This is specifically for the ignition. Uh, and these are all the things we have added a spec just to make sure that user has the option to reuse the existing information. So we want to design a controller in such a way that if the user passes this value, we will give priority to that. And if it is not present, then we will go and create it. And similar way, like spec in the status also, we are storing the ID. The reason for it, one is for easy access with the ID instead of the name. So we can save some time in the API calls. So we save the ID for all the resources from service instance ID to the control plan load balancer as well. So the main changes goes into the uh, Power VS cluster controller. So previously we were simply setting the status as true and we're returning. We're not creating any resources. But from now onwards, we want to go ahead and create the resources. I think here the idea is to support both the traditional way and the new way. So maybe that's why we may need to have a feature gate, or I don't know what is the best way to do that. But that is in plan. And yeah, all the logic goes here, the creating the service instance, followed by the network, then the VPC, then the VPC subnet, then the transit gateway, and the load balancer, and finally the cost bucket in case of using ignition. So once this is done, the main thing we are trying to do is that make sure that load balancers become active state, and we'll set the load balancer host name to the spec field. So this is one of the requirement from the cluster API. Then we'll make as the IBM Power BI cluster as the ready. So this ends the Power BI cluster workflow. And any questions in this workflow?
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
one quick question there.
Yeah.
Like we still that confusion. How do we deal that? Like use existing or create if doesn't exist, right? So
Yeah.
did we like do any sort of homework a bit to understand how the other providers are dealing with this situation, like AWS or something like that, to understand how we can handle this situation properly, right?
Yeah, I think in that case, they simply go ahead and create and they use tags. So that's what I saw in couple of providers, I think. Even I uh, try to use the tags as well here. Maybe is it feasible way for our case as well. Only thing is that only the DHCP network, I'm not sure how we can mark it, but rest all the things I think we can go with the tags.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Okay.
yeah, our earlier discussion was that if the user provides some resources, we assume that it should be exist in the cloud.
Exist, exactly,
Yeah, but
exactly.
with my experience with using the IPA workflow or something like, we expect the manifest to have some name, and we expect the controller to create it and later use it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we cannot really go with that assumption. So
Okay. But how about like maybe we should allow, or we have a switch. Then let's say if we set that switch and then it creates if it doesn't exist, right? Or something like that, maybe of that sort may be helpful here. Let's say like maybe in terms of a label or
label
or
to
some field. Let's say like,
oh,
maybe if someone creates a label, well, like someone creates a Power VS cluster with a label saying that infra create or
hmm,
something like that.
okay.
Just thinking, right? So maybe if you just set that label, so then your controller will see, and then if the resource doesn't exist, so then go ahead and then create it, right? If label doesn't exist for that cluster or for that resource,
Hmm.
then just reuse or just fail if it doesn't exist, something like that.
Yeah, even that can be done.
But does it make sense? Like, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, we can do, but my
Yeah.
question is like, is it a cleaner solution or still? But yeah, point number one, I strongly recommend you folks to sort of go and then explore the other providers like AWS or Azure, GCP, whatever, and see how they're handling.
Yeah.
Point number two, if you want to still deal with such situation, I think we should have some way of, having a switch or anything like that, which will sort of will give us better control, right? Instead of like assuming something and then, you know, that's what point is.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it.
Does it make sense, or still people have different opinions? Like, feel free to discuss. Like, we can discuss.
I have like I don't understand the point where IPA requires you mentioned about IBA flow doesn't support this infra creation, something like that. Karthik, can you please explain that a little?
Yeah, so in IPA ClaySide, so we use the installer to generate a manifest first, and then we apply the manifest to create the cluster. So
Okay.
while creating the manifest, the service sensors and the image controller, right? Everything expect the refers to a Power VS service instance. So you currently everything is set as ID.
Okay.
So in the case, right, when we generate the manifest, so if we can pass the name, so later during the controller reconstruct, we can fetch that resource with the help of a name. Since the manifest is generated first, right? So we don't know that resource will be available at the cloud at that point. So only when we apply that manifest, then only those resource will be created. Then only we can fetch the resource. So the requirement there is that whatever the name we are going to give at the creating manifest time, that will be created, then later be used. So that's the
Yeah. I mean, like Dharnish, if you remember, like, how we do it in the Hypershift, right? So we basically create the infrastructure and then we use those values while creating these specs, right? So that's when it get, the flow is, but in the OpenShift installer, what they do is like, um, they don't create these infrastructures, right?
Mm.
So they want to offload that task to the CAPI itself.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's where the sort of question mark or confusion or like, we're thinking about how to deal with that situation, right? Where, uh, like how do we classify the existing
Okay.
versus creation, like new
Yeah.
creation?
Okay. So in the
So
manifest, they would give the name. So, but when
yeah.
in means earlier design, we assume if the name is given, then the resources are existed. But
yeah, something like that.
okay. Okay. Got it.
But Karthik is saying that, yeah, let's write a controller in a way that it just goes ahead and then look for the name. If it doesn't exist, go and create it, right? So that's the approach he's like, that's the proposal he's making. So, but what I'm thinking is, yeah, let's have it, but not really as a mandatory, right? Or just have some sort of a, flag or the annotation I was talking about is that if that annotation present, or maybe we can have it as default annotation saying that if no annotation present, go ahead and create, go and create the resources, or like, or if you want to have specify saying that, uh, use existing or something like that, and then go ahead and then don't create it, right? So just go and then use it, whatever exists, right? Maybe
In
that will
that case,
give us an
the
opportunity. Yeah.
okay, sorry. Yeah, so in that case, in the IPA manifest itself, we need to have some way to mention that, to while generating the manifest for IPM Power BI
Yeah.
cluster, we
Yeah.
have to have a way to,
Yeah. So
we need to have some field in manifest as well. So,
yes, exactly. So see, that's what I was saying. Like, instead of having the manifest, like as in the spec, each and individual entry for the individual resources in the VPC, for example, let's say, not really VPC, Power VS, let's say VPC or anything like that, right? So we don't need to mention like, okay, so create VPC or don't create VPC and all that. Instead of that, we can just have one flag or the annotation into the spec. So that, let's say, if annotation in form of label, if someone says that, use existing or something like that. If it is set, so then it will not create, your control will not create any sort of resources, right?
Yes.
Or we need to see how that, like, definitely we need some more debate. I mean, does it make sense or doesn't make sense or whatever?
Yeah,
Will
Vijay.
matter.
Yeah, my question is, so for example, today I'm setting that annotation that use existing one, and I know that I expect the resource to be existing in the cloud, right? So with this normal flow only without annotation, if you go right, the controller by default fetches the existing one and uses it. So then there is a
Okay.
no need of annotation, right? Only in the case of a confusion, then we can set annotation and the controller will fail, saying that the resource does not exist. That's the only use case.
Okay. Okay. Okay, you mean by default we shouldn't be having it, and then if someone wants to create existing one, like use only existing, then they should have a flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, either way, right?
so in
But
that case, while deleting, we would be able to identify that is user provided or our created with the tag. Is it Karthik? So that will work, right? Or
Yeah, only way I can identify it is using the tag to delete it.
okay.
Yeah. So whatever we create, we'll tag that resource, and while deleting, we'll try to see that the tag present on the resource. If it present, then we'll go ahead and delete that resource.
you
But in
mean,
case of DHCP server, then we won't be able to identify,
Yeah,
right?
that's Yeah, that's the only thing I found. I didn't find any way to identify it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think let's document this discussion. Let's document this discussion in this spec.
Yeah.
And then we'll give some time, like, maybe I would say like let's take some time in terms of digesting this information. Like what other issues we might hit with, right? I mean, adding the label or whatever. And then let's give us some time, I think. Yeah, we still have some time for sure. Like January first week, I think we still will continue these discussions. I highly encourage Prajyot and other folks also look into it, because we I mean, like, you guys have spent a lot of time on this project for sure, so you would know like how the nuances is. So we might hit with, and that will give us an opportunity to again like modify or whatever, or finalize the spec, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm expecting is like, let's finalize this spec, beginning of next year, maybe like 1 or 2 weeks of January, we'll try to finalize the spec and then start working on the controller part, right?
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yes, Manju.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the only thing is we need to make sure the spec or the control change, whatever we're making, so it just works fine all our scenarios, right? So like, for example, hypershift, and then OpenShift installation, and then if possible, so like if possible, so our existing VPA, like
Yeah.
VIP flow also, I'm not sure how feasible it is. But yeah, let's consider exploring if it really works for the VIP flow also, right?
Yeah.
Because that is more flexible, and then more flexible as in it's very easy to consume without all these fancy resources. Yeah, so that's something we should also explore.
Yes.
Okay, so I think let's create these three like requirements, Karthik, in the design doc itself,
Okay.
mentioning that 3 scenarios needs to be like covered.
Yeah.
And then I need act from all the 3 different owners, right? Like OpenShift IPI, you can act, and then the niche you can act from Hypershift. I need someone from the upstream, which is VIP,
Yeah.
like Prajot or Amulya. So you can act for VIP thing. Who wanna act that?
Fine with me, Manju, I can do that.
Yeah, let's create these entries, Karthik.
Sure. I will do it.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
let's get the act when we have some initial coding done.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. But again, yeah, let's mention all the details in the discussion happened today before we disappear for vacation. So,
Yeah.
right, cool. Yeah, go ahead, Karthik. So what else you want to discuss?
Yeah, so this is with respect to the Power BI cluster. So there's one small change with respect to ignition I want to discuss as well.
Karthik, sorry to interrupt. Like you mentioned that we will give the user to decide whether to host the ignition in CAS.
Yeah.
Why do you want to do that? Like by default, is there any other way? Like I'm not understanding that part. Why user want to choose whether to go with user data or hosting the ignition CAS?
Uh, I think I'm not sure, Manju. There's a limitation for the size of the user data, right?
Oh yeah. So yeah, definitely. By default, I think the cloud init drive, right? So it can hold 64K, or it's pretty small, smaller than that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, full-fledged, let's say like if you have full-fledged the uh, the cloud init data like services and then certificates and then whatnot, and then it doesn't really work. We cannot just use like user data. So Just,
Okay.
okay, so in order to avoid that, what typically users or folks in OpenShift or the other areas also, right? What they do is like they just feed the initial ignition file, which pulls the remaining content from either COS or HTTP or whatever bucket or whatever link they have mentioned in that particular cloud config, right? It is going
Okay.
to be like via web, like, right? So that these are the two options. I think it's a good idea, Karthik, to have both of these because
Yeah.
let's say like if you really just want to have a simple Kubernetes cluster,
Yes.
then it will be pretty straightforward. You don't need to deal with the bigger chunk of cloud in it, right? That you may just end up saving one, like you may not, you don't need to create cost for that simple flow. But products like OpenShift does contain those master and then worker configuration, which is really huge. We definitely need some server from where we can pull that, the remaining content. That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. So currently we're creating the instance. We have option to select the format. So either it is using ignition or the normal cloud init data. So in case of only ignition, what we try to do is that uh, so we expect the bootstrap data to be the form of secret, and that secret will be created by the bootstrap controller. So that will present, and we'll fetch that bootstrap, and we'll try to upload it to a bucket. So that bucket will be previously created during the Power BI cluster controller part, and I will upload this object into that bucket, and the URL of that bucket will pass it to the as a cloud init, sorry, as a user data while creating the instance. So that is a format followed with in the form while we are doing the ignition way. Mm.
Okay, but this needs
Yeah.
to be enhanced for fetching it just from the user data also, right?
Yeah,
Or-
that's not affected as of now.
No, my question is like,
Yeah.
it always fetches from the cost bucket, or
No.
we have some option to sort of allow user to for the ignition while
Okay.
installing via ignition. So are we allowing the user data also, just the user data, like
When
cloud config?
Yeah, so either they can set the ignition or the cloud init. If there is setting there is ignition, then it always fetches from the COS instance. If it is normal cloud init as of today, then it goes with the normal flow.
Yeah, but my question. So ultimately, like, see, either ignition
Yeah,
or the cloud init. So you need to spend like send some data to your cloud config
correct,
anyways, right? So
correct, correct.
that's the default thing.
Yeah,
But like if you want to use ignition, so you always use from the cost.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
that what the
Yes,
current design?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
But is that how the other providers also doing, like the AWS?
Yeah, I think the AWS this is the way they are doing.
Okay. 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 But okay, can we still have like logic where uh, don't really try to fetch everything from the cost, right? So let's say if I'm just trying to deploy a very small kube config or Kubernetes cluster via kubeadmin, like
Mm,
kubeadm,
mm.
and if the content is pretty small,
Yeah,
in that case, should I still sort of create this cost or just send it as is the entire content into the cloud config itself? Do you think that's the valid
yeah,
scenario?
yeah. At that time, I think user is expected not to use ignition format. They can use a normal cloud init way, right?
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
But
If they want to use ignition and not to upload cost means, then we expect the size of the data to be small within the cloud init limit.
yeah, definitely. But the thing is like, okay, got it. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
But anyways, okay, user can decide based on that use ignition flag. So
yeah,
whether
correct.
they want to use the cost or not.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. That is already taken care of.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
So this is one. This is the only one change in the Power US machine controller, and most of the changes goes in the Power US cluster controller.
And sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
again, Karthik. I think we should also make sure that the ignition flow works fine with the vanilla Kubernetes deployment.
Yeah, that one thing I didn't explore because of the OS requirement. So maybe I had discussed with Prajot regarding that. Maybe he is going to try with that flow.
Yeah, just let's make sure
Yeah.
we cover that flow.
Yes.
Let's add that as a check mark into your enhancement proposal,
Sure.
so that we cover that also, right?
Yeah. And one last thing I want to just know the opinion, right? So currently in the spec, we have the control plane load balancer as a single load balancer. So I was just thinking, what if we make it as a list of load balancers? So which can help us in accommodating the future changes.
This is mainly for what? Like,
In our IPA workflow, we need two load balancers, right?
okay, internal and external.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's currently we have only.
I'm not able to hear you, Karthik. Not sure if my mic issue.
No, I lost it.
Okay. Okay. Let's let me ping him.
So Manju, meanwhile, just a question,
Mhm.
right? So whatever Karthik has tested so far, right, with respect to the ignition, he has tested that, I think, using the ArcOS image, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but when we talk about CAPI IBMCloud project as it is, right? So it's going to be more focused on the normal vanilla Kubernetes, right? So
Oh, yeah. So I think what we should aim is that we should try, try with Fedora CoreOS, which is open
Yes,
source
yes,
version
exactly.
of Dell. So I don't think we should really try with Red Hat CoreOS. I think we should,
Okay.
explore with Fedora CoreOS.
Okay, yeah. Think I have already discussed with him, so I'll probably pick up his code and try with the Fedora OS version of that and see how it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Karthik, can you hear us?
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was just asking about that control plane load balancer.
Yes.
Yeah. Currently, we have defined only one load balancer in the spec. So I was just thinking, what if we can make it as a list of load balancers?
Okay. Yes, we can do that. But the question is like, are we changing the existing spec or this is a new entry?
The existing spec only because we are yet to add the spec, right? Currently, we don't have the control by load balancer in Power BI cluster spec.
Exactly. So this is a new entry, right?
Yeah.
A new entry means I think you can do that. Shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
But is that the approach what the OpenShift team is proposing to AWS?
Currently, I don't see any discussion for the issue they have created.
But is it on the similar line or
Yeah.
something else?
Yeah. One of the suggestion was to use that, but for them it is a breaking change because they already have the control plane load balancer as a single entity.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the plan they are going to take. Maybe I can discuss with one of the maintainers as well. He's from
Yeah. So we can discuss and then, but the only question is what entry in that array will be considered as primary API server
yeah.
IP?
Correct. I think we
Entry.
need to identify those things.
Yeah, so we might need to maybe consider like primary and secondary or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So that's something we should be a little cautious while dealing with that.
Yeah.
Maybe you can discuss with the person who created that issue,
Sure.
and let's see like what is his idea to take
Yeah.
on that, and then we can maybe, you know, use those. I mean, like, we can take that as early adoption.
Yeah. Sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Nothing from my side.
Any other questions from anyone else? Okay. After like let's document everything, Karthik,
Sure.
into the proposal talk.
Yeah.
And let's update the other PR with your all the changes in the other branch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, if people can spend some more time before the new year, be good. And definitely we'll explore further next year. Cool. Anything else apart from this topic? Okay. Take that as no. Any other last comment before closing the call?
Manju, I'll raise those PR now, so maybe we can cut the release today itself.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? Cool. Thanks all. And then Happy New Year in advance. And yeah, have a nice break and then come back next year with all full energy. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks
And
all.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.